What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Phoenix Mercury podcast. I am your host, Erika. Hello. Okay.
Okay.
How are we?
Doing good. I'm blessed as always. How you doing?
Can't complain. Can't complain. I've had a little bit of trauma over the weekend. Got my phone stolen. Had a little bit of a field day, if you will, over the weekend. But got a new phone, and we, as the kids say, oh my God, I knew this was gonna happen. Screw we ball, right? Stephen, this usually only happens when we're done for the day. You know what I mean? Hello?
Not to start the EP.
Oh, there we go. We got it. Okay. But obviously, we got my guy, Kevin Thomas, the genius behind the screen working the X's and O's. I know you guys haven't met Kevin yet in person, but let me just tell you, he is the real mother freaking deal. He is that guy for real, for real, for real, for real. Okay. So if you hadn't heard already on the Wildcat Show, he is the guy. Shout out to you guys for joining us in the chat. My guy, Jonathan, don't be throwing no shade at the Mercury this early in the show. Please calm down in the comments. David, Chloe, my mom, and Andy and Ogre, welcome to the show, you guys. Thank you for joining the chat. We got a lot to get into today.
Yeah, we do. Starting with the team getting a win. It's been a while. It's been quite a while, actually. Obviously, the playoffs looming, a couple games before then. Definitely got some fun stuff to speak to, so go ahead and tee us up.
Yeah, before we get there, I do want to talk about the game against the Sun for just a second, because the Mercury had its third 6-point quarter of the year, and I do feel as though we do have to bring at least a little bit of attention to it. To allow a team like the Connecticut Sun to go on a 22-0 run in the third quarter is just not it. There's no other real way for me to say it. And you're not going to win games against any team in this league doing that. And that is, we're used to seeing that early in the game. They come out cold and like they get into rhythm later in the game, but we have not seen that late in the game like we saw it against Connecticut at home nonetheless. And so that being said, like, it was obviously not a great night for the Phoenix Mercury, but they did hang in there in the first half, which being that they were playing without Kahleah Copper, I mean, that is saying something against the third best team in the league when your primary scorer is sitting on the bench. So I did want to just bring a little bit of attention to that before we move into the win column.
Yeah, Connecticut continues to be a team that they struggle to match up with. They struggle to game plan against. They struggle to execute in game plan against. All of those things. That's just the biggest hurdle for this team outside of things that are not basketball related for the Mercury to get over this season. Unfortunate, it's tough, but at the same time, like you mentioned, when you're operating without Kahleah Copper in addition to Rebecca Allen, makes for a tough sledding against any opponent and just figuring it out, especially against a team that's been rolling post-Olympic break and everything that Connecticut has turned into ahead of the playoffs. So, yeah, that ended up becoming a schedule loss once we found out Kahleah was questionable, and then it was unlikely she would play. It became doubtful, and then they ultimately stamped it as out moments before tip-off. So you kind of just transition from that. I really did hope to see a healthy or mostly healthy Mercury team go up against that Connecticut Sun team. I feel like that was their best playoff type of matchup because we don't know what's going to be up for that game against Seattle to close the season. Both teams might be resting at that point because of their playoff seeding being stamped. So that's a tough one. But yeah, you just kind of roll with the punches on that and go forward.
For sure. And, just like I said, just wanted to spend just a second on it just because I was obviously in the building, and it was, I meet up with all of you guys at halftime, and we were all in pretty good spirits, I have to say. Especially for a game without Kahleah in it, we all felt pretty solid. And then for them to come out in the third quarter and perform the way they did was definitely, if you are in the Discord chat, which if you're not, go to gophnx.com, become a diehard, do that, and then you can come in the Discord chat, and you can see where we had kind of a mental breakdown in the third quarter in the chat. And I can't say I blame you guys. That being said, though, they did get us back into the win column. And we do have to be thankful for what we get in this day and age. I mean, again, you've heard Stephen and I say ad nauseum this year, like any win in this league is a good win, period, end of story. And especially when you have two injured teams going up against each other, let's face it, that's what we saw yesterday. That being said, we saw some damn good basketball.
We did. That game had multiple lead changes. I think the Mercury's biggest lead that game was 6, if I'm not mistaken. And that really speaks to and emphasizes just how close of a window is played in. I think all things considered, that's a good type of game for the Mercury to have, where they still have to work on executing not just from start, but all the way through the finish line. From play calling to execution of game plan to getting stops on defense, moving the basketball. I feel like it was a good test. Again, I want to make sure we don't look over it because it's been lacking this season for them to do that on the road. That's not a context of play where they've seen the most success this season. So for them to have had the wherewithal, the competitive stamina to go out on the road, even with the injury adversity, and make it happen, while their opponents are knocking down a whole lot more threes than were scripted into the game plan for them. By far a season high in 3-pointers made for the Chicago Sky in that game. I like the way that they just continue to compete and continue to stay within a Luck's touch, and they were able to finally compile some stops towards the end and ultimately get the win.
I was really giggling at my mom because obviously she watches a lot of Mercury games, but she doesn't watch that many Sky games. And she's like, "Oh, the Sky are really good from 3." I'm like, tonight. Tonight.
Correct. Just that was a very much an anomaly, to say the least, Mama Day. So yeah. Next time you watch the Sky this season, that's not happening.
But I do want to give a special shout out to Rachel Banham because I don't know what it is about the Phoenix Mercury. When she turns it on against the Mercury, girl don't miss. She was 4 for 5 from 3 in that first quarter, and that is kind of really like what kept it a game, honestly, in that first quarter was Rachel Banham's threes. It was just, and we saw earlier in the season when she was still with the Sun, 8 threes in the Footprint Center. It was borderline horrific to watch, and now we're seeing it still with the Chicago Sky. It's a gift for sure.
Yeah. The Sky knocked down 10 threes in the first half. Just ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous. Rachel Banham was a big part in all of that. Scored 15 of the team's first 17 points, or accounted for 15 of the team's first 17 points in that first quarter. She was they tweaked the starting lineup to get a little more spacing to match up with the Phoenix Mercury, and she came out guns blazing, catch and shoot off movement after timeouts. She was barely touching the rim when she was letting it fly from deep in that first quarter. But again, to the Mercury's credit, players can go on heaters. These are professional basketball players. Everybody's good at least one specific skill. The better players are obviously really good at multiple skills, and the greats are great at even more than that. Rachel Banham, certified sniper. That's what she does. I don't think that's a secret to anybody. Nate wasn't happy with the 3-point defense in the first half. He felt like they weren't in tune enough with the game plan. Just to put it kind of concisely, they were looking to help off of Sky players who were spaced around the 3-point line to kind of crowd the paint, especially when Kennedy Carter had the basketball, because obviously she wants to get to the paint first. So they were looking to really load up in the gaps and condense the court and not really give her any angles to try to drive through. Solid job on that. But the second part to that, you don't want to just give up wide open 3-pointers. And a handful of the threes that the Chicago Sky were able to hit over the course of the first half, and especially in the first quarter, kind of came from that context. It's not overhelp because that was quite literally the game plan, But the other half of executing that game plan is to get from point A, being peeled in early with help, to get back to point B, whether that's someone else helping the helper or the original helper going from helping the ball to closing out on the shooter. And they were just like, they just didn't have the urgency that they needed to execute that game plan in the first half. Second half defense was a whole lot better. It was literally night and day. You could see the urgency switch, particularly on those closeouts. But yeah, competitive stamina. I'll continue to speak on it. I'll continue to harp on it. Kevin, you can go ahead and tab that as one of the gotta have it tabs going forward as we speak to that going into the playoffs later on this week.
And you know what? Speak of that, because we did get the dub, and our guy Kevin, I told y'all he was a genius. Okay, I literally said it, but he's been working behind the scenes on getting us some new segments and graphics going. And this first one that I'm going to bring up today, the slay of the day, is courtesy of our guy Kevin, and I am so freaking excited about it because, first of all, I get to talk about my favorite player on the team, Natasha Cloud, today, and what better reason to do it other than the slay of the day. And our girl Tosh, you know, she is that girl. Okay, she's a point guard, dog, whatever you want to call her. She's that girl. And with the game yesterday and her double double, she moved into the 5th of all time in points and assist double doubles. And she is tied with none other than the point guard herself, Chelsea Gray. And if you ain't heard us talk about this season, then you must know. Listen, this list is some elite company. Period. End of story. 3 of these players, alongside Natasha Cloud, are still playing in the league. Obviously, Sue and Teacha have retired, but these players, like, she is within some elite company. Let me say it again, elite company. And for her to have climbed this list within her first year with the Mercury, it's just been really fun to watch. Super exciting. Just fun basketball with Tosh Cloud.
Yeah, Kevin, if we could get that graphic back up just to make sure that we overemphasize what Natasha Cloud is doing this season. Each and every last one of the names, excluding Natasha at the moment, is an all-time great player already. Alyssa Thomas at the peak of her powers right now, all-time great player. Chelsea Gray may have just turned the corner in terms of being at her peak and slowly descending downward. Some of that is probably due to injury and rust and with her rhythm as well. But every last one of the players, excluding Natasha Cloud on this list, is either already a Hall of Famer or a surefire Hall of Famer. Those are guards. Those are all-time great guards. Obviously, Alyssa Thomas isn't with that guard group. But all these players are also not just great at their individual position, but great all time. This is the air that Natasha Cloud's name is being in conversation with statistically. That's nothing to sneeze about. You need to make sure we need to make sure that we are appreciating the elite level point guard play that we're seeing. We speak on it as much as we possibly can. It's not the sexiest thing to talk about all the time because there's other things that are louder on the basketball court, like Kahleah dropping 34. None of those buckets oftentimes comes from Natasha Cloud's hands in some way or another, whether it's transition, she's setting her up off a pin down, she's setting a dribble handoff for her to come off of. Natasha's amazing. And the Mercury have been, like I mentioned, had an embarrassment of riches at the point guard position throughout the franchise's history, especially over the last couple of years. Skylar Diggins, when she was with the Phoenix Mercury, was a top 5 point guard. Natasha Cloud with the Phoenix Mercury is a top 5 point guard. Diana Taurasi's been arguably the best player in the W for how many seasons? You go all the way back to Cappy. Like, there's a lot of names that you can list. Appreciate this greatness. Don't just kind of let it go by without giving it the attention and thought, if not attention and thought, as well as matching it and watching the games as well.
Can you read this comment from Joseph? Do you understand what he's asking? Fever fan here. I heard if we beat the Mystics, sky is end. That would be awful. If we don't beat you, we could drop to 7 seed and have to play the Aces or the Lynx. Is that true?
I haven't looked at that particular side of things yet. I'm got some homework to do before the Sky game tomorrow, so I can't say yes or no to that. That sounds somewhat accurate though. I just don't want to stamp it because I still got to make sure I got my P's and Q's right as far as that goes. So I don't want to lead anybody off on that. But yeah,
What Steven's
that's
saying is we
close
don't
to
like
that's
lying
close
to
to
y'all
right.
on our show. Yeah.
I know. Oh, we will never fake the funk. No cap. We might as well call it the No Cap Mercury podcast. That's not what we do.
Exactly. Well, before we go any further, I do have to give a kind word to our good friends over at Empire Flooring. And if you're not familiar with our good friends over at Empire Flooring, they make shopping for floors, for your home super easy and convenient, quick and professional installation with a price match guarantee. They are the best place to get new flooring, and they keep shopping for floors simple with their curated product selection as well as their in-home floor visualizer. If you go out in your living room right now, snap a picture, upload it onto the website, empiretoday.com/phnx. You can upload it and see what your brand new floors are going to look like right in your living room. And then on top of it, while you're at the website, you can use our code PHNX to get $350 off of your brand new floors. So again, that's empiretoday.com/phnx. Go over there and get your $350 off of your new floors today. That being said, though, back to the squad, back to the squad, back to the squad. We have been having a lot of Diana therapy sessions over here. And today we're going to have a really fun conversation about Diana because let's just talk about the play that we are seeing at her ripened age of 42 years old. Like, if you didn't see our tweet yesterday, 24th double double after the age of 40. And obviously, like she said at the press conference yesterday, LeBron's turning 40. That record very well, good and well, might get broken very, very soon. But at least she has a freaking sense of humor about it. And that being said, like it will still be a record in the WNBA. So haha, jokes on y'all, because our GOAT is still putting up 25 points. Like, did I say double double? I did, huh? I'm on one about some nonsense today. Thank you. 20-point game, not double double. Sorry, guys. You can bout me when you see me at the game on Thursday, okay? Come for me then, not now, not in the comments, okay? Sorry about that. But yeah, 24th, 20-plus point game after the age of 40. Ridiculous, ridiculous, ridiculous. And you can see it early in the game yesterday. I think it's something with Diana where you just know it's her night or not. And you could just tell very early in the game that it was just going to be one of those games where BG and DT were both just going to be at the stove cooking.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Diana is just such a complete basketball player. I've said it a lot of times. Her scoring obviously steals the plot whenever you're speaking to her. And then if it's not just her general scoring, it's the timeliness of the bucket she's getting. And if it's not the timeliness of the bucket she's getting, you're probably talking about how just the sniper she is as a shooter and a shot taker. She doesn't care what time of the game it is. She knows how to get to a spot where she's comfortable with either hand, more than likely off the dribble, and is able to just pull up on consistency. That being said, though, Diana Taurasi, for as great of a scorer as she is, for as elite and all-time great of a shooter as she is, her passing is ridiculous. The way she sees the floor, her feel for timing, her general ability to deliver on accuracy. There's a play I'm thinking about where let me break down Spain pick and roll for everybody. So regular pick and roll, imagine two players, one player screening for the person that has the ball. They're trying to create some advantage, whether that be for the player coming off to get downhill or to shoot, or for the person that's rolling to the basket to have some type of attention or get the ball themselves. Spain pick and roll is when you add a third player into that action, where you have that third player coming from the baseline area to set a screen for the person that's screened on ball as they're rolling to the basket. Now imagine those three players are some type of trio of, for the players that were available yesterday, Diana Taurasi, Brittany Griner, and let's just say Sophie Cunningham. Sophie's the person setting that back screen for Brittany Griner, who's rolling after she sets a screen for Diana Taurasi. There's a lot of traffic that comes in there sometimes because you're adding an extra defender to an action that's typically just two players. But the intention here is to just hold up that person that's guarding the roller just enough so that the person rolling downhill can have an advantage. The pass can be thrown to them in some capacity and they can finish at the rim. Sounds simple enough, when you have a lot of bodies mixed in there, it gets a little complicated. Diana Taurasi, her passing ability. There's a pass she made yesterday where I believe she was going to her left hand, so she was going towards the left side of the court. She was able to process and throw a pass to Brittany Griner, where if you imagine Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. from Sunday, right on the money is a lot of traffic, like I said. The pass hits BG right here. Brittany Griner, obviously the tallest basketball player on the court, is able to simply catch it in traffic where nobody else can get it, put it right in the basket. I don't think she got fouled on that one, but I think that's just a microcosm of just how great Diana Taurasi is as a passer. She's going to her offhand. She's able to see through all of the trees and activity going on in the paint and able to put it right where only Brittany Griner can get the ball, and she's able to get an easy bucket. It's these little things like that over a course of games where when you're able to get other people easy baskets off of the attention that you garner for being such a great scorer, it really makes life easy for the Mercury in the half court. And it also makes life almost living hell in a sense to try to guard them. But that's only when they're operating time on task as a group in tandem with one another. And when Diana Taurasi has the ball in her hands, needless to say, the Mercury are at their near best, if not their absolute best, depending on what game and what day of the week it might be.
Absolutely. And I want to give you a chance because we haven't queued up any of your videos today. Stephen, do you got these ready?
Yeah, we all good. Kevin gave me the green light. So let's start with the first of which we'll be speaking about is Nate Tibbets speaking to the Mercury yesterday as far as the assists, the movement of the basketball, movement of players, and the extremely low turnover rate that they had yesterday.
I think just having space, like you said, our spacing was better. We're starting to look more comfortable. We've got a couple practices under our belt, playing to the second side. I thought our shooters shot it with confidence. We got 24 threes up. But yeah, anytime you can get 29 threes, the turnovers have been an issue lately. The last two games, I think we've only had 8 and 7. And when you don't turn it over, you give yourself a chance.
Did you feel like you all were like more aggressive defensively with your nail help, and that kind of played into the threes that the Sky were able to get up today?
Yeah, I would say the first half, we didn't do a very good job. There was not a lot of sense of urgency, and once they got comfortable, they just started knocking them down. So, we wanted to pull over from the nail, but we also didn't want to leave Bantam. We lost her a couple times, and we've been through that already, seeing her make shots. So that was not something that we were excited about.
All right, first of which, that was a funny end. First of which, 29 assists, 24 3-point attempts, only 8 turnovers, and they knocked down 9 of their 24 attempts from deep yesterday. That's a very healthy shot profile for the Mercury. That's a very healthy efficiency on the playmaking that they were able to find yesterday, moving the ball around the court, players moving in addition to the ball, them being able to go from one side of the court where it's pick and roll to the second side of the court where it might be a handoff, and sometimes getting all the way back to the third side of the court where now you're under 10 seconds on the shot clock. Now, after all of that, you defended well. Bravo, good job. Here's a Brittany Griner post touch. Have fun with that. And again, when the Mercury are able to get to that space where they're moving the basketball, players are moving in addition to the ball. They're getting the ball to Brittany Griner in multiple spots. It's not just one Brittany Griner touch. The defense hasn't shifted, and she's trying to go one-on-one where inevitably a double team is going to end up coming. They were cycling through multiple layers of their offense in the half court. The assist numbers show that. We talked about anytime they're over 18 assists, they have like a 70-something win percentage in the handful of games that they did that this season. Yesterday was just another microcosm of just that. And that was even a game where, like I mentioned, the game was played in an extremely, extremely tight box. There were how many lead changes in yesterday's game? I just saw it a couple of seconds ago. I want to give you the exact numbers just to give you an idea of the type of box that the game was being played in. 16 lead changes.
And a few ties.
Lead changes. And a few ties. 8 times they were tied. 16 lead changes, 8 ties. So this game was not like a comfortable win in any capacity. They had to really work. And that's the competitive stamina and the execution stamina piece that I keep speaking to. They have it in them. They've shown it. They're one of only a few teams that have beat the Minnesota Lynx, the Las Vegas Aces, and the New York Liberty. There's only like maybe 3 teams in the league that have done that this season. So they have it. They just have to flip the switch, keep it on, and do the things in process to consistently play at that level. Erika, what did you think about the offense and everything that we just kind of spoke to the last couple of minutes?
While I feel as though obviously D and BG were the biggest pieces of the offense, I think, like you said, they moved not just the basketball, but their bodies. And when they do that, this team has a much higher success rate of winning basketball games. They obviously, we've talked about ad nauseum that this team has not had as much time to build chemistry with one another as everybody else. Even look at the starters yesterday. When you have Celeste Taylor in the starting lineup, obviously she's newer to the squad and new to the league. So when you have her coming in as a guard, I know that Nate has kind of thrown around different guards for her, like positions, and she is kind of positionless right now, I feel like. That being said, though, when you are throwing her into the starting lineup with the type of players that you are, like, and you still have the ball movement that you have, and you're able to not have a stagnant offense, it's come a long way in the last 2 weeks, I would say.
It has come a long way. And I think the trick for me, I have to see them do that against multiple teams in succession. We saw them do that plenty earlier in this season. There was a point where the Mercury were top 4 in assists. Top 4 in assists and top 3 in three-point field goals attempted a game. This was before Brittany Griner made her return to the lineup around mid-June. The Mercury were, like I said, top 3, top 4, no less than top 4 in assists, and they were top 3 in three-point attempts at like 27 or almost 28 a game. Obviously, they're not going to be getting up as many three-point attempts as they did at that point in the season, but I see no reason why their assist numbers can't be hovering at or over 20 a game on average. And that's where they need to be at for them to be optimizing the pieces that they have on this roster. Yes, they can go one-on-one whenever they want to. Diana can get a bucket like we talked about. She might not be getting downhill like she used to, but she can get off shots with the best of them and make tough shots with the best of them as well. Kahleah is the best driver of the basketball in the W. And she's been a 3-level scorer this season. And obviously Brittany Griner can get the ball at the elbow or the post and do work against anybody. So they have the one-on-one element. That one-on-one element hits differently when it comes as an in addition to with the movement and the different type of sets and actions that Nate has them cycling through in terms of the layers of their process. When they hit the blend button and they're able to blend in Brittany Griner late post isolation in the shot clock, like I talked about, after moving and getting the ball to the second side and the third side, sometimes the fourth side, mixing that in with some pick and rolls, mixing in some Natasha Cloud 3-pointers and pick and roll, or getting downhill, getting to the free throw line, or getting to the rim. That's when they are at their best. I just have to see them do that consistently. And then the other part that we heard Nate speak to is the defense. Erika, I definitely want to get your thoughts on the defense from the first half compared to the second half and just generally for that game, kind of before I dive into it.
Well, and it's like Rob says in the comments, fix the 3-point defense, and it's a 10 to 15 point game easily. Oh my goodness, my words are coming out faster than I could say them today. But yes, I mean, he's not wrong. If they just stay on their person and not lose them in the defense, then this game looks completely different in the first half. And I see some comments, Chloe, my girl, talking about how it truly should not have been that close of a game. Listen, the Chicago Sky came out with just as much intention as the Phoenix Mercury did, period, end of story. They, as Stephen would like to put it, probably for both teams, it was a gotta have it for both squads. So period, they were both going to come out ready to win. And so if the Chicago Sky got them out of their defensive rhythm a little bit in the first half, I think it's only fitting that they make adjustments and find it in the second half, especially when you have the veterans on this team that they do. I think that's the biggest thing for me is, are they able to make meaningful adjustments at halftime and come back better? And it's something that's kind of been hit or miss this season so far, where you don't really know who's going to come out of halftime.
Yeah, those are good points to bring up as far as the lack of consistency on the defense for the Mercury. There's 2 big things with the Mercury for me. There's some other things that I definitely wouldn't bat an eye at if someone was to bring it up to me in conversation. That being said, though, the first of which is obviously rebounding the basketball. They have to close possessions on defense with rebounds, and they have to do so consistently. They were significantly out-rebounded yesterday against the Chicago Sky. Camila Cardoso only playing in the first half. She did not play in the second half, and obviously Angel Reese has been out for almost a week now. Tuesday will make it exactly a week since she's been announced that she will be out for the season. That being said, those two players did not play yesterday, and they were still out-rebounded. That's a tough. That just makes for your process over the game to be consistently uphill rather than being in the driver's seat and kind of dictating to your opponents on the scoreboard, but also on the floor of the game. When you're consistently being out-rebounded like that, it just makes life tough. It makes life extremely tough. I know we talked about them closing out and getting to the three-point line as part of the defense. I'll get to that part next, but there were a handful of three-point opportunities that the Chicago Sky were able to get up that stemmed from them getting an offensive rebound in some capacity. And that's just something that this team has to figure out. They have to get bodies on people when shots go up after they get initial stops and stamp those stops by grabbing the ball. In addition to that, and in alignment with what I'm speaking to in terms of the rebounding, just to kind of give some more context as to how the Mercury very easily could have lost this game. Talk about the rebounding differential. Chicago Sky had 37. The Phoenix Mercury had 23 rebounds yesterday. In addition to that, and in direct alignment with that, the Mercury only had 62 field goal attempts. The Chicago Sky had 72. So you talk about the impact that those extra possessions that a team might get over you in comparison. Offensive rebounds, the Sky had 11. The Mercury only had 1. So you factor all of that into them being minus 10 in terms of shots on goal over the course of the game. And you see how they could be playing very well, but if they're not hammering home the rebounding end of things, it's just going to make things almost inevitably tough to kind of navigate, especially if you're talking about going against one of the elite teams in the first round of the playoffs. Other big thing for me, we can get to the three-point shooting from opponents. This season for the Phoenix Mercury, their opponents are shooting 34.3% from deep. That is bottom 4 in terms of looking at what opponents are shooting to teams this season. That's tough. They have to be better at that phase of the game that I talked about in the opening and that we all also heard Nate speak to in terms of their defensive shell. Getting out to shooters, being urgent with their closeouts, and especially knowing when it's a sniper and it's not just like an average or below average shooter. Rachel Banham has never been a below average shooter or even an average shooter in her WNBA career. You have to close out with urgency. That's at the top of the scout report specifically for her. You want to close her out strong, put a foot on that three-point line, and force her to put the ball in the deck or give it up. Look at the first round. As of today, they're going against the Minnesota Lynx. You know who they have? Kahleah McBride. You know who else they have? Bridget Carlton. You know who else they have? Atlanta Smith, Nafisa Kahleah, Courtney Williams. These are players that you have to be on schedule with in terms of the scouting report. Any type of snags in process there, that's 3 upside the head. And we've seen Minnesota knock down upwards of 10 threes and multiple times this season, a couple times against the Mercury themselves. So they have to figure out that part of their process as well. I do think that rest, in addition to condensed scouting report where you're focusing on just one team for 7 to 10 days in a window of time, is certainly to the favor of the Mercury. But just generally speaking, this season, you can only speak on what you've seen them do. And based off of the number that we're speaking to, we have to see them be better at defending the three-point line.
I love that Kevin decided that this was a gotta have it for you. That the 3-point closeouts is the gotta have it for today's episode. I love that. Very good stuff, you guys. Very, very, very good stuff. You know, while we're not really on any topic, I guess I probably should have included this in the housekeeping episode or portion of this episode, but we didn't talk about the fact that Sophie Cunningham re-signed with the Phoenix Mercury, and I feel like that's pretty relevant. And I am kind of like stifled that I failed to mention that so far. I feel like that's big news on Planet Mercury. As of right now, the Mercury have 3 players on for contract next year, and Sophie Cunningham is in fact one of those. So if that tells you anything about where the squad is at, like there is going to be some contracts to be had, and Sophie Cunningham, I'm kind of thankful, is not one that we have to really worry about. She's obviously played this season with a little bit of a shoulder injury, and it's really been bugging her. You could tell specifically yesterday in the game against this guy. I think was the first time I feel like I've been able to see it in a game. That being said, it really hasn't affected her shooting, considering she was 3 for 4 from 3 yesterday, 4 for 6 in total, 14 points, 5 rebounds. Girl's playing her little ass off, and she does exactly what the squad needs for her to do, and exactly so glad she'll be back, like irreplaceable, and she is so much of a part of the Valley culture here in Phoenix, and it's been really fun to have her a part of the squad. And she was just as much a part of this win as everybody else yesterday. So got to make sure I give girl a big shout for that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's some good business done there. The numbers, well, we don't know the numbers, but the amount of years in terms of extending her one extra season is important as the Mercury transition into potentially a Taurasi list era of basketball. You want to have the players on the margins tapped in contractually so that you can put your attention on if you have to replace, and I put replace in air quotes because you don't just plug and play somebody to take Diana Taurasi's spot. That's as big of a gap to fill in a historical context as any other player. But to have somebody else in that type of starting shooting guard role that can assume the many different roles that Diana does for this team is important. You can't get to that point without, like I said, addressing the margins. Good bit of business done by the Phoenix Mercury to have Sophie locked in for an extra season.
And one thing on the topic of contract extensions, this season is going to be an anomaly in terms of, probably the next 3 seasons, but considering the expansion draft and also the expanded CBA is coming, do not be surprised with in November, you see a whole lot of 1-year deals being signed. Just do not be shocked because more money is coming, and it would be almost silly to sign a 2 or 3 year deal when you are almost guaranteed to be getting a lot more money very soon.
Yeah, I could certainly see that. These agents are very savvy. Obviously, they're very much aware of these little transition periods like this. And it might be to the favor of teams that are contending, like the Phoenix Mercury, to have players in on 1-year deals. Gives you a little bit more flexibility on the cap. Also allows you to kind of be a little bit more, detailed with how you're going about picking who you might want to have on the roster in the short-term sense. And kind of, like I said, building around the margins on top of that.
Yes. Well, that being said, back to the game yesterday versus this guy. I know you've got more stuff for us, and I don't want to not get to any of it. So I'm like, go nuts, Stephen.
All right, let's talk about Natasha Cloud. You talked about the point assist double-double, where she stands in terms of historical context, and we talked about the players that her name is continuously included with and their status among the WNBA's history. She's also a player that is guarded uniquely and from a guard sense, and she processes it very well. She has a very interesting background for why she processes the game the way she does, and I kind of got to dive into those things with her post game. So, Kev, if we could get that clip up from Natasha post game yesterday.
Yeah, I think for me as a player, I've always in the offseason just spent time with being more consistent from beyond New York. I think everyone knows I'm a slasher at heart. I can get to the rim. I'm a big guard. And when I get my feet dirty, I can really pass the ball. So I think extending has been, in my mindset, if I don't make open shots for my teammates, if I don't make shots when people are going under, then I'm hurting my team. So that's always been my mentality in the offseason, just come back and be 1% better. And I didn't really start the year off shooting the ball well, but sometimes around this time of the year in playoffs, it just starts to click for me and my competitor comes out. So just being confident, but also on the back end of it, having a team that is like really confident in me. Panda's been huge for me as my position coach with like just doing little things with my footwork to make me feel more comfortable with stepping in the shots and making sure my form is good. But I'm just, the shots got to go up, especially when we're missing Kahleah from our lineup. I got to put some more shots up.
And past just the shooting part, though, feels like you're making super quick decisions, kind of anticipating it, too. Can you just speak to that part of it, too, past just the shooting in there?
Yeah, my dad put me in football when I was younger, and I was a quarterback, so I feel like the way that I'm able to see the floor is direct correlation to that, I'm super thankful for my dad and for that opportunity and experiences I got as a quarterback, because you have to be able to see the whole field and different options. And when you're talking about basketball, it's the same thing. When we're going through our offense, reading the defense, what are they doing, calling audibles, understanding schemes, and just how to put my teammates in the successful situations. We talked about our 2014 team after our last game and celebrated them, and they talked about the selflessness that was on that team and how they wanted to make their players, the players around them, better. And that's just always who I've been as a point guard. You know, if DT hits a 3 off my assist, that's my 3 points. Like, that's just how I see things. So I just always want to make sure that I'm doing my job and making sure my teammates are getting in successful situations from the positions that I put them in.
A great bit of detail given from one of the game's best point guards in Natasha Cloud, like we spoke about early on in the episode. I'll continue to emphasize that. She is a gem to the game of basketball, from obviously how she plays the game, the versatility that comes with that, but also how well she articulates the game, how she processes through things, and just generally just the voice that she has. Very special athlete, non-specific to any sport. Make sure, I mean, Phoenix has seen a handful of very, very great athletes that are very articulate, from obviously Diana more than anybody else, speaking how many languages at the drop of a dime, to obviously being able to articulate the game extremely well and explain why she does the way she does things. Chris Paul can be added to that mix as well. Natasha Cloud's cut from that exact same cloth. Got to appreciate him. Kevin Durant can be considered in that as well. Natasha being able to just so consistently and so efficiently be able to operate in pick and roll this season is one of the things that the Mercury run as much as anybody else in terms of their offense. She's the point guard, so naturally she's involved in a lot of those actions. She usually sees soft coverage where teams are trying to either bait her into shooting more threes than she's comfortable with, or keep her from just generally getting downhill where she's at her best, when she can get her feet muddy in the paint, like she spoke to. The counterpunch to that is her being able to make quick decisions when a defense is trying to play her softly, or just get up 3-point attempts, and doing it in a rhythm and efficiency that makes it impactful over the course of the game. We've seen Tosh get a couple of games post-Olympic break where she's knocked down 3, 4, sometimes 5 threes. And a lot of those come off the dribble because of this coverage that we're speaking to, where they're going under screens when she's in pick and roll. That's going to be important for the Mercury, because whoever it is they play in the first round is going to be playing her with these heavy unders. She's got to consistently not allow for the offense to lose its rhythm and flow whenever she does have the ball. Obviously, she'll have it in her hand as much as anybody else. So she's been doing a great job with that, but not just to score, also to play make for others. Couple of assists to Diana Taurasi yesterday, couple of assists to Griner yesterday as well in that, and just continuing to be one of the best point guards. She has to be a top 4 point guard in the W in terms of her efficiency and effectiveness over a game for them to win, and win the way that they desire to this season.
It's almost like the defrostation is almost completed and Playoff Tosh has almost joined the chat again. I know y'all are ready for this.
Tried to warn you.
I've been saying it for like, 3 weeks now? Like, I need like an icy graphic for Tosh or something. I got to get on that, because my girl is cold, okay? But make sure it's not twisted. She's not frozen anymore, okay?
Good point.
I think sometimes Stephen really doesn't know what to say with me. But that being said, we got a couple of games this week, and we're not going to get to talk to you between now and then. So I do kind of want to yap about them for just a minute before we go. Tomorrow, they have the final road game of the season in LA. I have to laugh at the injury report, because what is the word that they used for Odyssey Sims? I have to look at it again. I'm so sorry.
I got you. Give me one
probably second. I don't
Yes.
know if that means probably she's playing, probably not. I don't know. But I really did have to laugh, because right as I got that email with the injury report, I'm watching a TikTok about how Odyssey Sims feels like she scored 50 points in that game against the Storm, and that is because she is that girl. And so that being said, I really hope she gets to play, because I don't want to play no broken LA team. And the injury report they got is about 6 players long, which is, as we know, about half of the roster size here in the WNBA. So I'm really hoping we get a fun basketball game tomorrow. that being said, I do personally feel as though, like Stephen said, we have to see what we saw in the second half against the Sky, the whole game against the Sparks. This cannot be a game that they decide to take off just for fun. I know that they have their seating on lock, but that being said, like, that doesn't mean they have anything else on lock. And they need to be ready for the playoffs. And being that the playoffs start so quickly after the final buzzer of the final game, they don't have any time to mess around and go practice and watch film. And no, they have to read the scout and get ready for the playoff game one, period. So they need to take care of business in LA and come back to the Footprint Center for likely a competitive game against the Storm.
Yeah, I think there'll be some jousting in terms of the decision making on rest versus playing players, and if players are playing their full capacity of minutes on average, or if they're going to play a little bit less than that. Nate and company have some decisions to make on that end, but I do think that the Mercury should err on rhythm because they haven't had their full lineups, as we've spoken to so much this season. They haven't had their best players all in a lineup at the same time for nearly the capacity that other teams that are in the playoffs have. Obviously, the winning percentage when they have their best players in rotation is elite, but we haven't seen it for a capacity that's enough to really say that that's truly who this team is. We just got to kind of hope to see it once the playoffs come around. Obviously, with Beck Allen likely not playing until potentially the playoffs come around. So that remains to be seen, but I think players need to stay in a good rhythm. Diana Taurasi needs her shooting rhythm. Obviously, she's the best shooter to ever touch the basketball in the W at this moment in time. So she can get her rhythm back whenever, but you want players clicking in their individual rhythm, and you also want some of your sets and things to stay as sharp as it could possibly be going into the playoffs. I think they should err on that, especially with the players that are healthy. Might not necessarily see Brittany Griner playing 34 minutes. Might not see Natasha playing 37 to 38 minutes. But if they're playing a solid 20 to 25 and he captured that 25, just make sure they're still sharp in their process. But yeah, kind of be watching for the injury report over these next two games because that'll give you an indicator as to what to expect from these respective games.
I have to laugh because our season closer is against our good friends, the Seattle Storm. You know, this is extra fun for me for a lot of reasons. If you know me, you know I'm a big Wildcat fan, and we had some trauma this year at the hands of our good friends over in Smelly Rainy, Seattle. And so this year I'm really hoping that the Mercury can take care of business on the season closer because I did not wear this shirt that says Smelly Rainy Seattle for nothing, okay? I need y'all to get it done. I've already seen this one Seattle team I don't like lose this week. So that being said, get this rivalry game, put it away, get it done. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I got some bad news for you, Erika.
All right, hold on. Before you say it, are you about to tell me this is about to be a big week for the Celestials?
It might be. Because I don't think that either one of the two teams slated to go against each other to end the regular season is going to be playing that many of their starting players all that much. So that, again, it remains to be seen. And I'm not speaking as a source or anything. I'm just saying the Seattle Storm pretty much stamped in their seeding. And we'll obviously get a whole lot more information on that over the coming days before the final game of the season. But obviously the Mercury have been locked into the 7th seed for a handful of weeks now. I don't know if we're going to see too much in terms of the best players going at each other in these games, but yeah, I just don't want people to get their hopes up for that game because it could definitely be elite level matchup if everybody's healthy. We might not get that though.
Kobe, that is a tragedy. Losing your Smelly Rainy Seattle shirt, you deserve jail time for that. But big shots for Kobe to popping in on the show today. I know he ain't been here in a while, and he heard that I was wearing the Smelly Rainy Seattle shirt, and he did us all a solid and popped in the show. So that being said, big update. Again, probably should have said this at the beginning, you guys. I'm so sorry. Friday, 1 p.m. This is going to be the biggest show of the year. I'm going to just say it right now. This is going to be Stephen and I's biggest pod of the season, okay? Season closer. I got another fun shirt planned. You guys aren't even ready for what is coming to you guys in the shirt department on Friday. We're going to have a big playoff preview. Everything will be set in stone. You weren't getting flamed in the whole chat last week, Kobe. Calm down. Welcome back to the show. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate y'all, but especially you, Kobe. He's been begging to come on the show, so I'm just thankful he popped back in the comments. You know what I'm saying, y'all? But yes, Friday afternoon, 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Stephen and I, maybe a special guest, maybe. I'm not dropping no hints. That being said, though, it's gonna be a fun week. Whether it's gonna be starters playing all the game or not, I'm still gonna be very much enjoying these last few games of the WNBA regular season. If y'all know me, then you know that I count down the days after March Madness is over. Literally, like my internal clock says W season's on the way, baby. You ain't gotta worry too much longer. So I am just as sad as you guys are that the 4 months of peace, fun, and happiness is coming to an end. But that being said, like I said, we got a really fun show planned for you guys on Friday, and I'm super excited. Is there anything else that we forgot, Stephen?
Yes. I got one more clip. I got one more clip in the chamber.
I knew it.
We got some Diana Taurasi conversation from post game yesterday. Just a quick one, but something that I think is going to give good insight into the evolution of basketball in general, but especially on the women's side of things over the last couple of years, in terms of how Taurasi has kind of spearheaded some of the unique usage of guards. So yeah, I kind of talked to her about guard screening, and I'll let her take the floor from here.
I think we've taken a lot of different approaches on how to get open and create mismatches and advantages. And I think the guard-to-guard really wasn't utilized much, probably my first 15 years. And I think now it's giving you a different way of getting a mismatch that you want. People going downhill. Chicago does a great job of doing it with Kennedy and getting you, off kilter and takes advantage of that. And I think we've benefited a lot from that as a lot of teams do.
That is something that I've always appreciated about Diana, as she's just limitless in her talent and skill. Her ability to screen for Kahleah, her ability to screen for Natasha Cloud, sometimes screen for Sophie Cunningham, and allow for Brittany Griner to work in space off the second side to pull away any extra attention from the opposing center. It's just invaluable. Diana doesn't have to have the ball in her hands to be extremely impactful over the course of a game, and there's a lot of value in that. I'll be speaking a whole lot more to guard screens when we speak about playoff matchups on Friday's special episode. But yeah, Diana is great for a lot of things, and we talked about her passing and her scoring earlier in the episode, but something else that's underrated in terms of the value is her ability to screen effectively and her ability to screen for guards and cause havoc, kind of as a chess piece moving around the board in the half court for the Mercury. So big value from Diana Taurasi, everything that she does on offense. We'll see a whole lot more of that come playoff time for sure.
And I see y'all in the comments laughing about her backpack. I was laughing just as hard as y'all were about the backpack, but I'm serious. She was carrying the team, so she just put the squad in the backpack. It's okay. It's like a good old-fashioned video game. You know what I'm saying? It's okay.
Listen, she was ready to go. She was ready to get up out of there. She wasn't going back to the locker room after she left.
Can you blame her? They got to go straight to LA. She said, "I got a flight to catch. Get me out of here, squad." Like,
she was out of there.
She said, "Celeste, get in my backpack. We're going to the airport."
Nah, for sure. She definitely did.
It's been a fun weekend of Mercury basketball. We're in for another fun week, in my opinion. It's gonna the final week of the season is always fun, and being that the playoff standings are still so much so could change, it's going to be a fun week of basketball. Period. End of story. There's still a playoff spot up for grabs. We could be seeing the Chicago Sky in the playoffs. Could not. Who knows? Could still be the dream. It could, like I said, just a lot of fun basketball to be played. So in the meantime, where can they find you, Stephen?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at StayTrueS.3. You can find me on YouTube, Stephen Pridgeon Gardner 3. I have some film up from yesterday's game. Just kind of zooming in on some of the little things that the Mercury were doing extremely well. Might talk a little bit about the defense and contrast in the second half from the first half. A lot of fun things to dive into. And before our episode on Friday, but definitely before their first playoff game, I have some playoff preview stuff looking at the matchup with whoever it is that they're going to be up against in the first round. diving into the weeds on film, and also doing so in the written format. So make sure you tune into my written content as well on GoPHNX. And last thing, as always, especially ahead of the playoffs, and even to kind of help you sort through the madness with the AC going into the playoffs, tap in with Basketball References women's newsletter, the women's basketball newsletter. All you gotta do is a simple Google search, type in Basketball Reference women's basketball newsletter. All you gotta do is provide them with the email to send it to for you. And just like with yesterday's game, you would have woke up with Mercury and the rest of the league, including Asia Wilson, scoring 1,000 points in one season that's not getting nearly enough attention. It's ridiculous. But you would get all type of historical context, Mercury-specific context, box scores, anything you want. You can get it all in the little newsletter that they send every morning following games in the W. That's going to be clutch, like Diana Taurasi hitting game winners in the playoffs for you going into the playoffs this season. So tap in with that, tap in with that, tap in with that.
I do gotta throw Google under the bus real quick, because before the show, I was looking for some stats online, and I'm Googling away. My little fingers are just moving, and I swear it doesn't matter what verbiage I typed in. I'm looking for the double, like record list, and the only thing that wants to come up is something about Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. Those are the only two things that come up, and I'm like, Google, you used to be useful. What happened?
Don't blame Google for that. Blame everybody that keeps searching. Yes,
it is making me crazy. I literally am like,
for the algorithm.
Can I please get the information I'm looking for? Shout out to my good friend David Beanstra for helping me out, because I was driving down the road and I could not find the information I wanted. So if you want to hear me rage about losing my phone, not being able to use Google properly, or literally anything else that comes into my brain, follow me over on Twitter at Erika Day. And if you want me to talk about basketball, you can follow us both over on Twitter at PHNX_Mercury, where I am going to be having a field day with memes over this last week of the season. So watch out for that. Can't wait for the fun episode on Friday. And until then, see you guys on Twitter.
We all silly like the mayor.